right. Peace out. Peace out. Peace out. Oh, look at that. Really beautiful up here. This reminds me of a lot of different places in Alberta. Well, welcome to our fourth vlog, everyone, and today I decided to make up this quick video to talk about my 5 favorite sunrise and sunset shots I've taken in the Canadian Rockies. And before I get into the nitty-gritty of all of these shots and how some of them are luck and some of them might not have been luck, I wanted to give you guys a few tips and tricks that I've discovered over the years of taking sunrise and sunset shots in the Canadian Rockies and can save you guys a whole lot of trouble. So the first tip I can give you guys is to plan. You want to have good pictures if you're going to go out there, especially early in the morning, so you might as well at least get a lot of planning done so that you're not disappointed. The first thing is to get on site where you want to take pictures at least half hour before. I see a lot of people that will go out and don't do a whole lot of planning, then realize that, oh, I'm not in a position to take a good picture because the sun is actually coming up now and we're not even near. You're gonna have to drive, and you're most likely going to have to hike in the dark to get up to where you need to at a sunset, or you're gonna have to come back down in the dark. And also make sure you have lights and everything to be prepared to come back in the dark. The other most important thing is to know where and when the sun comes up and down. It's super important. And it's not always the easiest thing to find for information wise, but I found 2 sites that helped me a lot. One of them is called suncalc.net, and the other one is sunearthtools.com. And both those websites allow you to pick a certain spot on the globe, and then you'll be able to see exactly where the sun comes up and where the sun goes down. And sometimes there's certain places where the sunrise and sunset shots are really bad, depending on the time of year. And if you don't go on one of these tools to figure it out, you might get there and be heavily disappointed. The other thing you need to prepare for is not just the actual time of year and where the sun goes up and down, it's actually the weather. And if you don't have any clouds and it's a nice clear sky, there's nothing for the light to refract on, and you'll probably just get a kind of boring sunrise or sunset shot with hardly any color. So if you want a nice sunrise sunset with nice colors, you actually need like the sky to be 30% to 50% covered in clouds, and the cirrus clouds, like the thin tall ones that are spread across the skies, those are the best ones to actually take some good sunrise shots. All right, so let's start with my list, and the top 5 here, it's in no particular order because it was really difficult to find my list to begin with. Number 5 would be at Abraham Lake. And this is a spot that I kind of found a little bit by accident. I was driving along Abraham Lake and it was in November. And I drove all the way down to the Windy Point. And then I realized that the sun was coming up and it was really nice colors, and I was like, oh, so the weather was there. So I had this one rule. The other rule is I wasn't even planning on taking any sunrise and sunset shots at all because it was in November, and in November at Abraham Lake it's the worst time. Like November, December, January, February, don't even bother with Abraham Lake because you're not gonna get the good angles you need to get a decent sunrise. But I discovered that there's about a 2 to 3 week range, which is I think end of October to early November, that the sun kind of comes up at a low angle, but it comes up in between the first valley and Mount Michener. So that first mountain range in Mount Michener, there's like a long corridor that's kind of wide open, and the sun was just coming up right in between. And I went out there and I put some cameras down. I even set my drone up, and I got like some really good sunrise shots here at Abraham Lake. Second spot, Hidden Valley Trail in Jasper National Park. And this was at Labor Day weekend. It was kind of the perfect morning. There was a kind of a lot of cloud cover, but it was kind of about 30-40%. And this is also when I realized that normally the sunrise there, you can barely see it. Actually, in June, where the sun is right at the far northern portion, you really can't get a good sunrise. So you have to wait for the sun to line up with inside the valley, so that if you're in the valley and you're looking east, you'll get a nice straight shot. So it's actually end of August, early September, which is some of the best times to go into the Athabasca Valley. And this was obviously one of my first sunrise, and definitely not my last, because after I got those shots, I was hooked for the rest of them. So the third spot that I got for sunrise shots was in Ling Peak, and this one involved hiking really early in the morning. In October, it's actually the proper time, so September, October, and there's also one in the spring, but there'll be more snow, but it's kind of lined up with the Bow Valley and the actual peak. So if you go into the maps and you put your tool in, you're going to see that the sun kind of lines up kind of perfectly there at that time of year. So I went all the way up to the top of Ling and took these wonderful sunrise shots, and I took a lot of pictures too. So that's another good reason why you don't want to take just one shot. If you can do these and bring multiple cameras, use your phone, use your camera, grab a GoPro, do a time lapse. If you can get 3 or 4, you're going to get a good variety of different types of shots. Another good one that I took for sunset shots this time was actually on top of Coliseum Mountain, and this is kind of a 2-for-1, because there's 2 mountains here that you can get to the top, and since they're just outside the first range of the Rockies, you get a good view there all year round. The first one is Coliseum Mountain, because it's like a big plateau, and on top of there you can go on each end and you can look at the sunset at one end and the sunrise at the other. It doesn't really matter, and you get these wonderful shots there. The other one is Black Rock Mountain. That one requires a lot more effort to get to the top, and there's a little shack at the top and you can kind of sleep there. I've seen people do that, and then you would almost guarantee to get some good sunrise shots there, but you're facing no mountains. But the sunset shots there might be more valuable, because then you can see them setting into Banff, into all the mountain ranges. So it might be something to consider. You go up there, wait for the sun to come down, and then hike back down safely in the dark. Or my favorite sunrise hike was at Chemna Pass. This was actually totally by accident in a way, because I got to Moraine Lake at 4 o'clock in the morning, back when you were allowed to actually drive there, because that's when you had to drive there if you wanted to park. So I was going to do some hiking in Sentinel Pass, Wastic Pass, and Chemna Pass, and I was looking at the sun, and in September the sun is really poor in that area. Moraine Lake in general, I don't know why people take sunrise pictures there. You only see the tips of the mountains, and you kind of have to do it early in the season to get the good angle. As soon as you get past like beginning of August, you really can't hardly see any sort of like light tips at the very top. I was inside my vehicle looking down at my maps, and I was like, well, the sun's coming up there. And the day before, I actually went to the other end of the lake to see if I can see the sun hit the lake, get the complete opposite view, and it wasn't that great either. So I was like, okay, I have an extra hour of sunrise, because that's how long it takes for the sun to come up right above the mountains. So I did the math, and I just quickly grabbed my backpack and headed out in Chemna Pass in the dark. And I was actually able to get all the way to the other end, past Little Egypt Lake, and I put some GoPros down there, and I kept going, and I took some crazy, some of my best sunrise shots all the way to the end of Chemna Pass. And unfortunately, I think that's something that nobody will be able to reproduce anymore, because you're not even allowed to drive there. That whole morning, I had like half hour, 45 minutes that I couldn't take a bad picture, even if I wanted to. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed my list of 5 sunrise spots that we've taken with Air Tremblay Adventures so far, and I hope it motivates you to go out in the mountains and hike some trails. And also, don't forget to bring your camera so you can take some good pictures of some sunrise and sunset. Peace out, everyone.